Hello everyone, welcome back to Carbro Show. Now I love a good electric car as much as the next guy, but let's be honest, sometimes they don't quite get it right. Today, we're diving into the top 10 worst electric vehicles ever made in the USA. We're talking about the clunkers, the lemons, the ones that make you say, what were they thinking? You might be surprised by some of the names on this list, so buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. First up, we've got the Chevrolet EV1. Now this was one of the earliest mass-produced electric cars way back in the 90s. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, all sleek and futuristic. But under the hood it was a different story. The EV1 had a limited range, even for its time, and it was only available for lease. You couldn't even buy one. And to make matters worse, General Motors decided to recall and crush almost all of them. Can you imagine that? Crushing your own cars? They claimed the batteries weren't up to snuff, but some folks smelled a conspiracy, thought Big Oil was putting the squeeze on them. Now I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but you gotta admit it's a little fishy. The EV1 was a noble experiment, but ultimately it was a swing and a miss. It left a lot of early adopters feeling burned, and it kinda gave electric cars a bad rap for a while. But hey, you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? Next up, we've got the Fisker Karma, a car that promised to be the Tesla Model S before Tesla even existed. This was a luxury plug-in hybrid, sleek, stylish, and expensive. Justin Bieber had one, Leonardo DiCaprio too, but the Karma was plagued with problems. First off, the battery range was pretty dismal, especially for a car that cost over $100,000. And when you did run out of juice, the gasoline engine that kicked in was noisy and rough. And if that wasn't bad enough, the Karma was also prone to catching fire. Yeah, you heard that right, catching fire. There were several high-profile incidents of Karmas bursting into flames, which is not exactly the kind of publicity you want when you're trying to sell a luxury car. The Fisker Karma was a case of ambition exceeding execution. They had the right idea, but they just couldn't get the technology right. Now let's talk about the Ford Focus Electric. Ford's been around forever, right? They built America on the backs of their cars. So you'd think they'd know a thing or two about making a decent electric vehicle. Well, the Focus Electric proved that even the big boys can stumble. This was basically a regular Ford Focus with an electric motor shoehorned into it. It was slow, it had terrible range, and it was more expensive than its gasoline-powered counterpart. I mean, who wants to pay more for a car that can barely get you to the grocery store and back? The Focus Electric was a classic case of too little, too late. By the time it hit the market, other automakers were already miles ahead in the EV game. Ford was playing catch-up and they never quite caught up. The Coda sedan. Where do I even begin with this one? This car was, how can I put this delicately, a disaster. It looked like a generic sedan that you'd find at a rental car agency, and it drove about as well as one too. The range was abysmal, the performance was sluggish, and the interior was about as inspiring as a doctor's waiting room. But the real kicker? The Coda sedan was built by a startup company that went bankrupt shortly after the car was released. So not only did you get stuck with a terrible car, but you couldn't even get parts or service for it. The Coda sedan was a cautionary tale about the perils of jumping into the EV market without doing your homework. The Smart Fortwo electric drive. Now, I get it, these little cars are supposed to be cute and quirky and perfect for zipping around the city, but the electric version was just plain bad. The range was so limited that you could practically watch the battery gauge drain in real time. And it was slow, painfully slow, like watching paint dry slow. And to top it all off, the Smart Fortwo electric drive was overpriced for what it was. You could get a much better electric car, or even a gasoline-powered car, for the same price. The Smart Fortwo electric drive proved that good things don't always come in small packages. Sometimes they come in packages that are best left unopened. The Honda Fit EV. Now Honda's known for making reliable, fuel-efficient cars, but they really dropped the ball with this one. The Fit EV was another one of those compliance cars, built just to meet California's zero-emission vehicle mandate. It showed. The range was mediocre, the performance was uninspiring, and the design was, well, let's just say it wasn't going to win any beauty contest. But the biggest problem with the Honda Fit EV was that it was only available for lease, and only in a handful of states. So even if you wanted one, chances are you couldn't get one. The Honda Fit EV was a forgettable entry into the EV market, and it's probably best if we just forget about it altogether. BMW i3. Now, I'm a BMW guy, I've got a few in the garage myself, but I've got to be honest, the i3 was not one of their finest moments. It looked like a futuristic toaster on wheels, and the interior was made from some kind of recycled materials that felt like they were about to disintegrate if you looked at them wrong. But the real problem with the i3 was the range extender. See, BMW thought they were being clever by offering a gasoline-powered range extender to alleviate range anxiety. But the problem was, the range extender was loud, it vibrated like crazy, and it completely ruined the driving experience. The BMW i3 was a case of trying to be too clever by half. The Nissan Leaf. This one pains me a little bit because the Leaf was actually one of the first mass-market electric cars, and it sold pretty well for a while. But then, the battery problems started. The early Leafs had a nasty habit of losing their range, like a lot of range. People were driving around with range anxiety on steroids, constantly worried about whether they'd make it to their destination. Nissan tried to fix the problem, but the damage was done. The Leaf's reputation was tarnished, and it's never quite recovered. It's a shame because the Leaf was a decent car in a lot of ways, but those battery problems really did them in. The Fiat 500e. This little Italian electric car was cute, quirky, and about as practical as a pair of stilettos in a snowstorm. The range was abysmal, the performance was about as exciting as watching grass grow, and the interior was cramped even by small car standards. But hey, at least it was cheap, right? Well, not really. Fiat was practically giving these things away, offering huge discounts and lease deals just to get them off the lot. The Fiat 500e was a classic example of a car that looked good on paper but failed to deliver in the real world. And finally, we come to the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, a car that was so forgettable, I almost forgot to include it on this list. The i-MiEV was one of the first modern electric cars to hit the market, but it was quickly overshadowed by more capable and stylish rivals. It was slow, it had a terrible range, and it looked like it was designed by a committee of accountants. The i-MiEV was a valiant effort, but ultimately, it was a flop. It proved that being first to market doesn't always guarantee success. Sometimes it's better to be late to the party and arrive in style. Well, there you have it, folks. That's our roundup of the top 10 worst electric vehicles made in the USA. We've seen some real clunkers, some head-scratchers, and some downright disasters. But hey, that's all part of the journey, right? The electric car industry has come a long way since the days of the EV1 and the i-MiEV, and who knows what the future holds. Maybe one day we'll look back on this list and laugh. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Hope you enjoyed the energetic tunes.